You've been tasked with a dreadful job. You must scan a bunch of documents and then store them on SharePoint. It's your company's overdue initiative to digitize their archive, and you're working through the invoices and quotes and whatnot, and you're thinking, what if there's a better way to do it? Turns out there is. It's called PowerAutomate. If you've never heard of it, it's a more or less easy to use tool to make your own automations. Well, automation sounds like a magic word. It can do repetitive things for you, like moving files around, send automated emails daily, weekly, or however often you need. It can fill templates and send them via email, but these are just basic examples. It can connect to a whole bunch of Microsoft and non-Microsoft services and perform various actions on them. These integrations are called connectors, and there's a whole bunch of them. It can also react to events, like it can extract attachments from emails when they arrive, and store them in a folder you specify. Sounds cool? Let's see if your archive situation looks something like this. Scanner is set up to send you an email whenever you scan a doc. The attachment is named wrong, of course, and you need to place the doc into the right folder on SharePoint depending on what type of document it is. Am I getting close? If I am, then stick with me because I have a huge time saver for you. So what if instead of you having to download the doc from Outlook to your desktop, renaming it there, then opening SharePoint, locating the folder, and then finally placing the doc in the right location? You would do something like this instead. The scanner would automatically save the doc to a folder on your computer. Then you would rename it the way it needs to be. Then an automation would pick up the doc from the same folder and automatically place it in the right folder. Sounds better? Okay, let's do it. So my SharePoint looks like this. Here's my library, and it has one folder for each of the customers. To simplify things for now, let's assume that each of the customer folders is named with a 4-letter abbreviation. I know this is an ideal scenario, and we'll work on improving this later in a separate video, so make sure to subscribe not to miss it. Then within this customer folder, we have one folder for each of the projects. Each file from the email needs to go to the customer and the project folder. If you have a more complicated flow, don't worry. By the end of this video, you should have all the information to implement a more complex solution yourself. So let's just get started, shall we? I have OneDrive set up on my machine, and it synchronizes online folders onto my machine. I'll create a special folder within OneDrive which will store all my temporary files, which I still need to rename. Now let's open Automate. Open your web browser and go to make.powerautomate.com. First, I want to pull all the attachments from new Outlook emails to this new folder. Here's how I do it. Okay, so now I am in Outlook and I have my shared mailbox here. It's called Scanner. So the scanner will send emails to the scanner mailbox, and whenever a new email arrives, I want to pick it up and extract the attachment and save it to the drop zone folder. So yeah, let's just go to PowerAutomate. So make.powerautomate.com, and then click on My Flows, click on New Flow, and then click on Automated Cloud Flow. And I'll name it Extract Outlook Attachments, and then I'll search for my trigger. So trigger is what will make this flow run. As you can see, there's quite a lot of them, but I'm interested in something that has to do with Outlook. So let me just search for that. And it appears that this first one matches what I want to do. So when a new email arrives in a shared mailbox, I want to trigger this flow. Let me click on here. Create. Okay, so when I tried this earlier, I had some issues with invalid connection or something. If you receive that issue, I would strongly suggest you to disable this new designer. Just click on here. So I have my trigger here. What I like to do is just rename this trigger. So when a new email arrives, this is great. So original mailbox address will be scanner at... Let's see if that works. It's not complaining, so that looks fine. So what I will do, I would like to test if this automation works as it is. So what I usually like to do is pull up a quick block called Compose. And what Compose does, it serves like a notepad for any information that you want to see or check. And when I add this Compose block in the inputs, I can just click on here. And as you can see, this little pop-up window opened where I have all these interesting things here. So let's maybe check some details. Let me print out the from. So I just clicked on from here. And just to make it easier for me to understand understand, I'll just add some more text in the front here. So from, and then I'll add a new line, and then that'll be to. So as you can see, the cursor is kind of jumpy, so don't lose your mind over it. And then the final thing that I would like to do is see the attachment's name. What PowerAutomate has done here is it created what's called a loop. Naturally, because there can be more than one attachment in a single email, PowerAutomate was smart enough to create a loop. And what this will do is it will just allow this compose to run for each of the attachments in my email. So PowerAutomate actually did everything for me. So I'll just continue with my example. So I reopen the compose block and I'll just add attachment name. And I'm also interested in this attachment's content type. And then let me just add that. So as you can see, you can very easily add these fields to this compose block. Now, while I'm doing this, I just want to ensure that this block actually works. Sometimes the blocks just won't work for non-apparent reasons. So the first thing that I always like to do with any trigger is to confirm that it actually works. See, that's what I'm talking about. So I would have saved this trigger with the trigger incorrectly configured. So let me try to do that again. So scanner at, you should get a drop down as well. So if you have multiple shared mailboxes, this should bring up a drop down and you should select the mailbox from the drop down. Otherwise, as you saw, it wouldn't work. So the two additional options that I would like to configure are this only with attachments and include attachments. So only with attachments will filter out any emails that don't actually include attachments. And this is a really nice feature because then I'll only have the runs in the history which actually included attachments. This is really good. And then I'll also use these included attachments, which will include the attachments with the trigger so that I wouldn't need to download them separately. So yeah, I'll just set both to yes, and that's it. So let me try to save that. And it says that my flow is now ready to go. So I can go back. So this is kind of the flow settings page. Whenever a flow runs, I'll see kind of the history here and I'll be able to inspect what actually happened. So let me try to do exactly that. So I have my document here, but for this document, this obviously won't trigger because this is not a new email anymore. So I'll just mark this as red and I will send myself a new email. Okay, the email is here and I have my attachment here. Let's see if this trigger triggered all right. So while I'm here on this page, I can just click on refresh and it seems like that the trigger did not trigger yet. Let me wait for a couple of minutes if that will change. Otherwise, we'll just need to reconfigure the trigger somehow. All right, it looks like that worked. I just needed to wait for a couple more minutes. What I discovered in the meantime is that there's a hidden setting, not so hidden actually, in the new designer. So if you go to this new designer and go back to the trigger, here's the checkbox that I was missing. So how often do you want to check for items? And if I change that from 5 to 1, that'll be even better for me, I believe. Save it. And now let's see what this run did, what this flow did. So if I open that, so the trigger ran, that's all fine. There was one attachment. It was from my email and I sent it to this scanner at, and the subject was this, and then the attachment name was this thing, and then the attachment content type is this application/PDF, which is all correct. It looks like our logic is actually working and I'm very happy about it. So now we can proceed with editing this flow. So let me just click on edit and let me close this Copilot. I don't need this compose anymore, so I will just delete it. So right click and delete, or just click on delete on your keyboard. And then under apply to each, I want to add a step which actually copies this attachment from Outlook, from this trigger, to my OneDrive. Let me just click on plus, add an action and search for OneDrive. So OneDrive for Business, that's the one that I would like to use. And that's probably the one that you're using as well. So if you are working for a company, then probably this is the connector that you want to choose. Otherwise, if you're trying to upload the document to your personal OneDrive, choose this one. That's the difference here. But I will click on show more, create file. That's the one that I'm looking for. And I will need to sign in here. Now I will need to search for this drop zone folder. So I'll just click on this open folder, actually click on the arrow here, and then search for drop zone. So the file name will be, I'll just use the attachment name. So what I can do is just click on this lightning bolt and then search for attachment name. Then under file content, you can just put slash and then do insert dynamic content. That's also possible. And then search for attachment content. Let's see if that works. Now I can click on save and let me actually test this flow. Now, because my flow already ran once, I don't need to send myself another email just to test it. So instead, what I'll do is just click on test here and do automatically with a recently used trigger. And then I can choose this succeeded 4 minutes ago. And I will click on test now. And let's see if that works. It looks like it succeeded. So let me open up my Explorer. It looks like that the document has been uploaded successfully. Okay, now the files are getting copied from the emails automatically. What now? So the files are named a bit randomly at the moment. The scanner is not really a smart device, is it? To let the logic know where to place these files, we'll need to come up with a clever naming schema, like this. You can see the name is made of 3 parts, which are separated with underscores. The customer abbreviation, the project name, and the document name. So this specific file will get placed into the following subfolder. Let me rename a couple of docs on OneDrive so I'll have something to work with. Here we go. Okay, I think we have all we need to get this working, so let's get it done. In my opinion, the first tutorial was a bit easier to understand, but this one might be a bit tougher, so let me try to make it as easy as possible. So this is the final solution that we'll be building. We'll be checking for new files every minute. As you can see here, we could have used the OneDrive connector and listened for when the files would get renamed, but I found out that checking the files manually works better. It's just more reliable. Then we'll get all the files from the drop zone folder and filter the ones which have not been renamed yet. We'll use the PowerAutomate expressions here, as you can see. Don't worry if you've never used them, I'll show you exactly what to put in here. Also, I'm planning to do a quick PowerAutomate course soon, so if you're interested in mastering PowerAutomate, just subscribe. Okay, now that we have all the right files, we'll do a couple of things. We'll extract the parts from the file name. First, we'll break the names apart using underscores. To make the automation easier to understand, we'll extract each of the parts separately and store them in separate compose blocks. We'll need to ensure that the folder on SharePoint actually exists, so we'll use the PowerAutomate's create folder block. You might think, why is there only one create folder and shouldn't there be 2 at least, because we have a folder hierarchy. It turns out that PowerAutomate takes care of this already, so we don't need to worry about it. And then finally, we'll finish the flow by actually uploading the file to SharePoint and just removing it from drop zone. I'll go back and go to my flows and create a new flow, and this will be scheduled cloud flow. I'll just name it move files out of drop zone. Sounds like a good name. So starting, you can keep whatever you want here and repeat every. We'll eventually set this to 1 minute. So files will get checked every minute, but just now during the development, I will set this to a day and I'll click on create now. So this first block is called recurrence. So let's just rename this to check for new files every minute. Eventually this will be a minute. It's very easy to change that later. So I'll just click on this plus, add an action, and then search for OneDrive standard, and then I can do list files in folder. This is the connector that I need. I will just rename this to get all files from drop zone. It looks like I need to change the connection first. So if it says invalid connection, try clicking to change connection. Try to click on your existing name. If that doesn't work, or if no connection is there, just click on add new. Just sign in with your username that you want to use. I'll choose the folder now, click on this arrow, scroll down and find this drop zone. Perfect. So this will get me all the files from the drop zone. And now I would like to filter out any files which have not been renamed yet. And how are we going to do that? We're going to use a special block called filter. Click on plus, add an action, filter, and here it says filter array. Let me just rename this filter out improperly named files, and then here under array to filter, I will just use all my files. To do that, I'll just click on this lightning bolt and click on this body/value. It's the only thing that you can get. When I added this get all files from drop zone block, I received this body/value, a list of all the files within this drop zone folder. In fact, let's not make this into a philosophical discussion. Let's just test it out and see what we get. So I'll just delete that and click on save, and then I'll click on test. So this is where this body/value comes from. So we have this body and value. If you've ever used JavaScript or JSON or something, this will be kind of familiar to you. It looks like at the moment I don't have any files in my folder, so let me just fix that. I've just added 2 more files to this drop zone. So let's try to rerun this flow again. Let's try to test it manually and see what body value contains now. So body value is no longer empty. We have this ID and we'll need it later, so you can already see where we'll be getting that from. Then we have the file name, which is what we will be using. So here are our parts. So this is the first part, first underscore, second underscore. This is a correctly named file, so we'll use just that and we'll break it apart into parts. So part 0, part 1 and part 2 are the things that we need. Okay, so let's get back and edit this flow again. Let's finally add the filter array, and let's name it improperly named files. Array to filter will be our body/value, and under this filter query, we'll add something that's called an expression. So the first thing that we need to get is the actual file name that we would like to split, to break apart. So we'll do that. We will use this dynamic content, and then we'll use this name. And now that we have the name, we can actually break it apart. So we'll use this split function, and it takes in this text, which will be our file name, and it takes the separator, which will be our underscore. I'm entering text here, and I need to wrap it with these single quotes. So I'll just close that. And now one other thing that I need to do is this split gives us something that's called an array. It gives us another list, and list, obviously we can tell how many items are on that list. And to get the number of items, to get the number of ingredients, the parts after we've splitted this name, we can use the length here. So length, and we'll just wrap it like this. So now we have the length and split the item. We've split it by this underscore, and we're getting the length of this whole thing. So I'll just click on add, and now we would like to keep any item whose length is equal to 3. Let's try to save that, and now let's test this. What I expect this filter to do is give me just these 2 files. This third file has no underscores whatsoever, so this is not something that I'm interested in. So let me test this flow now, and let's see what this filter returned. So I have my ABCD, that's perfect, and then I have this VVFG, and that's it. That's actually it. There are no other things, so it looks like our filter worked. All right, so now that we have filtered out the files, let me add another compose here, add an action, compose, click here, and then inside compose, first what I'll do is I will add body name. And what happened is PowerAutomate correctly added this for each for me. But now what I need to do is I want to use this in an expression. And I can very easily do so by just selecting this. And you see this little border will appear around this block. And I can just Control C and go to formulas and then paste that in here. Remove the brackets and the @ sign, and now we have this base string. We can use the exact same trick as we did in the filter, so I'll just use split, and then I'll split that by underscore. And let's just close the parentheses, and I'll just rename this compose into name parts. That's great. Let me just save and test this so that I check that everything is working so far. Okay, now there's an issue which is kind of hard to explain, but it says that there's an issue within this for each thing. So if I click on for each, it says that unable to process template languages, blah, 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 outputs cannot be evaluated because body value does not exist. So you did not see this piece of code because PowerAutomate added that for you automatically, but it looks like it made a mistake. If you've never used PowerAutomate before, this is gibberish. Yeah, it says that this code is trying to use this value, so body/value, which we saw here, but it says that body value is not available here, but what is available is this body. So available properties are body. Let me show you how to fix that actually. So I can go to edit, click on for each, and you can see this body value here. What I'll do is I will open my notepad and I'll just paste that in here, and it looks like I copied the wrong thing. So let me try that again. So body value, select everything, Control C a couple of times, paste that into, so we don't have the body slash value, but we only have the body. So let's try to fix that. So copy that here, select all, copy, and remove that and paste that in here. So let me try to save and test that again. And let's see the name parts. And as you can see, this worked. Let's put all of these 3 ingredients into separate variables. So I'll just click on edit, add a new compose. Now I will use a formula and I will use dynamic content. And from whatever name parts outputs, I want to extract the first part from it. This is the way to do it. So you take the name of whatever PowerAutomate gives you, and if you want to extract the first name from the list, you use 0. And if you want to extract the second item, then you can select 1 or type in 1 or 2. So number 0 will be our customer name, and I'll just click on add here. I'll rename this from name parts into client name. That's great. And then I'll do exactly the same thing for project name and for the file name. So I'll just right click and copy action, plus paste as an action, and then I'll just rename that into, I'll just change that to 1, and this will be my project name. And I'll do that exact same thing again, copy action plus paste an action, and I'll do file name, and this will be 2. Okay, update. Let's test that again. And let's see what the client name was. Client name was ABCD, and the project name was, looks like I forgot to change something here, but the file name is correct. So let me just change the project name. Look like forgot to press, yeah, it's still 0. So I'll do 1 here, update. Let me try to retest that again, and I have everything correct. The next thing that I would like to do is I'll make another compose named folder path, and that will be actual folder path, the folder hierarchy within SharePoint. So let me go to edit again, plus add an action, another compose. I'll add dynamic content, my client name, and then slash, and then another dynamic content, and that'll be project name, and I'll add 1 slash in the beginning. This is actually the path to the folder where this file needs to be dropped, and I will just rename this to folder path. And I'll add a plus again, add an action, and then SharePoint again. And this time I will use create new folder, and the site address will be the ultra important site again. List or library will be my online archive, and the folder path will be this folder path. So let me add this folder path. Save test. And it looks like that worked. SharePoint should have created a folder called abcd/pb. This one, abcd. It looks like it has been created before, but this pb27 has been created a few seconds ago, so it looks like that works. And it creates not only one folder, but it creates the whole hierarchy. Finally, we can now create this file. So create file, search for that, SharePoint create file under ultra important site, folder path. Let's start with online archive, and then I will use folder path like this. And then the file name will be our file name, which we extracted before. So file name, outputs, and then the file content is something that we don't have yet. We actually need to download the file here to import it back into SharePoint. So, but that's very easy. So let's just click on plus here, add an action, and do get file contents, not from SharePoint, but from OneDrive for Business. Find this filter out in properly named files. You'll see this body ID and see what this does. But now this for each, well, actually you can keep it, but it's not necessary. So if you want, you can keep that as it is. But if you want to get rid of this for each one, what you can do is just copy this, delete it actually, then go to expressions, paste that in, and remove that @ sign and the brackets. And instead of items, you can do item and just remove everything that is here. And I believe this should do the trick. So I'll do OK, that's ID. And now I can actually put that outside for each and delete for each. So now we have this flat structure, and I like it this way better. We should have the file content now. And what I'll do is I will just add this content here. So get file content. This is what I need. And then finally, we can delete the file from the drop zone. So delete file from OneDrive for Business. And the file ID will be the exact same thing as here. So I can just go here and paste that in here. All right, I believe we're done though. Okay, let's test that. So I will save, click on test, manually test. And okay, it's not complaining yet, but let's see. I can already see one of the files disappearing from my OneDrive. I'm just, okay, and the second one disappeared as well. It appears that this logic is working. So let me see, create file. So this is abcdpb274. Let me try to refresh this. And I have my invoice in here. So about a minute ago, let's check the other one. So I can go back here and click on the next error. This depends on the number of the files that you have. And in here, it looks like that works. And the final thing that you can do is just go to, just edit the flow and change this check for new files every minute and change this from 1 day to 1 minute. Click on save and you should be good to go. Now, I know it was not the easiest thing in the world, but I hope it will save you lots of time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and ask any questions down in the comments. And it would also mean so much if you subscribed. It's free, so you don't have much to lose anyway. But that's it for today. Have a good one and see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.